Yeah, there's basically time in our culture, I think, where we need to distinguish between exactly the two types of truths that you've alluded to, and how I basically I mean we don't need to invent new words, but basically we I think what Richard Dawkins would believe is that things that are factual are true, and that things and vice versa, and that things that are true are factual. Whereas I think uh, where Jordan Peterson would look at it is that things that are factual need not be true, and things that are true need not be factual. That there are two separate categories, and the I mean, a lot of what you're talking about reminds me of the whole debate between uh, Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson when they're talking about metaphorical truths, and I think that I mean that idea has been very well sort of talked about, and so we don't need to go too much into like what into the idea of metaphorical truths. The thing that interests me though is that basically when we have this idea of truth, truth then becomes more something more than factual. It becomes, I mean, I guess it's probably important for us to define what these two categories are then. What is something that is factual, and then what is something that is true? And so how I look at it is that something that is factual is something that is empirically observed or can be empirically observed. And something that is true is something that I am definitely stealing these definitions from Jordan Peterson, but he would say that truth is something that serves life, or that something that well, and I know that he's actually taken that from Nietzsche as well. So, but something is like a truth is something that progresses life. So, for example, is it true that is it true that a gun is always loaded? Well, then that's the example that they gave in that talk, and obviously that would serve life in a very obvious way because if everyone believed that the gun was always loaded when they were given it, then the a misfiring would basically would
Be
occur
less likely.
less often, and so I think that's how I look at it. Then, therefore, when we're talking about then the interesting point here, which is I'm not sure how I can't remember if Richard Dawkins and Jordan Peterson were able to actually come to an agreement here, but the next question is how do you get truths from the facts? So if Richard Dawkins is a scientist and he is a scientist, and then he delves in facts, Dawkins seems to care so much about facts, and he says like all I care about is what is factually true, or yeah, what is a fact. But and something that I was listening to earlier today was that he has to have a he has to have a prior belief that it's important, that facts are important. Why does Richard Dawkins believe that facts are so important? And that has to be predicated on the idea of that the truth will set you free, or that the truth will actually serve life. And so like he has to implicitly believe in the idea of seeking
Yeah.
truth in order to actually be a good scientist. And that's the thing that I think that he's not understood. And you can't, and even if Richard Dawkins was to to sort of deny that, then when he's a scientist in the lab, he has to basically prioritize, well, what is he going to, what facts is he going to discover basically? And even doing that, he has to have some implicit uh, perspective on what's valuable and what's not valuable. So he has to have a framework of like what he should prioritize when he's in the lab. And he's basically acting under some meta ethic that you have to be truthful when you're being a scientist because he could obviously fill numbers and things like that but he's not doing that. He's acting as a very honest agent, and So he implicitly carries some idea of truth when he's even being a scientist. And I think that's one of the interesting things about him is that he just doesn't that doesn't seem to click for him.